Welcome back to Old School Sports and our OOTP 23 playthrough of the Pittsburgh Pirates. We are at the start of spring training 2044. Pirates had one goal this offseason: to improve our fan interest. And I have failed miserably at that goal. We are projected to sell a few more season tickets than last year, but right now our attendance is expected to be lower, which means our revenue is expected to be lower, which means that we're probably not going to improve our budget situation. So we do have one Hail Mary outstanding after we failed miserably in our last episode to bring on Alex Vasquez, a player that we knew well from our time as general manager of Kansas City. Right now, we do have an offer outstanding to Japanese import Yoshitaro Nakahara, who's wrecked physically, 30 years old, has never played in the United States, has low leadership, no speed, can't bunt, but does play a decent defensive outfield and does look like he theoretically has the ability to hit. And most importantly, he is an extremely popular player, having been a pretty big star over in Japan. So if we can bring him on to kind of be our fourth outfielder, that would give us the popular player that we need and salvage what has been a very disappointing offseason. My hunch is that he's going to just get us into a bidding war and end up going somewhere where he can make a lot more money than with the Pirates. But we'll find out what happens. Besides that, we do have at this point 44 players in camp. Pitching, going with our usual six-man rotation in the spring. And interestingly, a couple of our prospects who were picked in the third round of our first draft back in 2038 in Juan Bin Daoud, and the second round of that first draft we did with the Pirates in 2038 in Sal Valadez, are getting the number 5 and 6 spots in the rotation coming out of spring train or going into spring training. I tend to think we'll probably start them both down in AAA, which likely means that Mr. Omar Gaona will probably end up in the number 5 hole when camp finally breaks. But we'll get a look at those guys in the majors. And then in our everyday players, Tony Rendon, who we picked up when we were trading away arbitration-eligible players that we couldn't afford at the beginning of the offseason. Going to force start him at third base. Right now we've got a definite open battle at third base between Jaden Dixon, who was last year's starter, Ethan Fox, who we picked up in a trade a couple of years ago at this point. Looks like he's about ready for the majors. And then Rendon. The issue is Rendon's never played or trained in the position before when he was with the White Sox organization. But if you look at his defensive ratings, it's probably the most logical position for him to play in the infield, in my opinion. So we're going to force start him there, see what he looks like in a couple of weeks. And then we're also going to look at a couple of our really interesting young outfielders, Alex Ruacho, who ended last season in AAA, and Danny Calles, who only got up to high A ball last year and only hit 216, but still looks like a player who may have a major league bat down the line. Get a look at both of them in spring training, and don't think either of them is going to be making the team coming out of camp, but will be good to see them up with the big club. And hopefully the Pirates can remain healthy over the next month or so as we're preparing for the season. And if we're able to add in Mr. Nakahara, that will salvage us a little bit as far as our fan interest. But keep in mind, we're only going to be signing him to a one-year deal, so we'll take a hit when he likely leaves us at the end of this year. But right now, we're focused on the problem in front of us, which is getting someone popular on the team so we can have more fans in the seats this year. And Nakahara has come back to us and said that we're the front runner at this point. Don't know that I believe him, but I'm sure we'll be finding out in the coming days. And in the least surprising news of the day, Nakahara says that he's not happy with what we've offered him. Looking for $5.2 million, which theoretically we can afford. All right, we'll meet that demand. We'll keep playing your game. And the games continue with Nakahara saying that he's going to Los Angeles now. $6.4 million is about as high as we can go. We'll meet that demand, submit the offer. Guessing he's going to get something better somewhere else, and that will be the end of our flirtation. And not surprisingly, Nakahara says he's got a better deal. I think we're kind of at the point where we can't offer him anymore. And he's looking for $8.5 million. We don't have that kind of money. So I would say that our goal of increasing fan interest, we have officially failed, because I don't see any way we can bring him on board. I guess we can reach back out on Alex Vasquez with the Angels. I'm guessing that's not going to be fruitful. But might as well at least check in. I don't even know if the 60% that we were working for, whether we can afford that. There's only 3 players they'll take now for him at that amount, so definitely not a good situation. Yeah, not going to be able to bring him on board either, so we may just end up going into the season with what we've got, and hopefully can bring on some players as we get closer to the trade deadline who are popular, who teams are looking to move on from, and hopefully also play well on the field and get our attendance up and get fan interest up that way. And Nakahara did end up signing with the Padres for I think $8.4 million a year, so couldn't afford it. Disappointing, but we are going to have a decent amount of money to spend when the season begins. So although we didn't do much this off season, we'll look to fill some holes on our team. If it's players getting injured, or if it's just an area where we think we can make ourselves a little better. I'm sure that as the season moves along and teams fall out of contention, there will be some popular players on the trade block, and hopefully we can take advantage and bring some of them onto our team. Attendance is looking a little better right now in terms of the projections, but still not a great situation. Have to hope that we get off to a pretty solid start. We're playing well over 500 ball. We're in contention for the playoffs, and then we can add some popular players, and although we're not going to have sold a ton of season tickets more than last year in all probability, hopefully we'll be able to bring on some popular players, and we still can be close to capacity most games as this season gets into the warmer part of the year, June and July. If we bring on some players, maybe we can still kind of salvage a decent financial performance. And we've made it to the end of spring training, so that is good news. Pirates with a 16-8 record, so we played well. That's good, but not really all that interesting. One thing that is interesting is that we don't have a ton of injuries, although I just saw Tony Santana in red and was a little scared. Looks like it's a day-to-day back stiffness 3-day thing. Hopefully won't become a big issue, and he'll be ready to go in his first start of the season. You can see that Longoria, Santana, Gonzalez, and Montoya all pitched really well. Our top 4 guys Bin Daoud and Valadez probably both headed to AAA. You know, we've got to cut these 19 pitchers down to 12 right now, and we're going to cut our 21 position players down to 14. So got some work to do to see what this roster is actually going to look like. Tony Rendon, we did get him trained up decently to be able to play third base. Certainly not going to be force starting him there anymore. Will be interesting to see. Obviously, the roster is going to switch, but we've got Dixon, Fox, and Rendon all listed as third basemen. One of the things that ownership has asked us to do is to upgrade third base this year from last season, when for most of the year Dixon was our third baseman. So let's see what Vasquez thinks of the lineup, and it looks like he's going right back to Jaden Dixon, even with Ethan Fox and Rendon potentially on the roster. So probably not going to make a lot of improvements there with the same guy out there on a daily basis. And we paired the roster down to the 14 position players. Nelson Ibarra back as our starting catcher, and then Mario Quiroz, who we picked up in that now infamous trade when we got rid of two youngsters, Luis Espana and Jim Quander, is going to be our backup. Sean Barley makes the team. He's out of options. He was the 2042 National League Rookie of the Year. Split last year between AAA and majors and did not hit well at the major league level, as you can see, with a .184 average. But made the roster since he doesn't have any options left. Luis Flores and Alfredo Velasquez are going to be splitting time at first base and DH. Juan Rivera taking over as our full-time starting second baseman, with the fact that we moved on from Mr. Serrano in the offseason. Dixon back at third base. Rendon, who we picked up in a trade in the offseason, is a utility infielder along with Barley. Tony Cota back at short. Isaiah Hill in left. Ramon Herrera in center. Henry Gonzalez in right. And then two new additions in the outfield. Arthur Arellano, who we picked up in the Rule 5 draft. Like his glove, kind of intrigued by his bat. He's only 23 years old. He's never played above high A ball, where he only hit 264 last year. So going to be interesting to see what he does as our fifth outfielder, but going to at least give him a chance to stick with us. And then David Juarez is a player we made as a minor league free agent signing about a month ago, when it became clear that we weren't going to be able to bring on Alex Vasquez. Proven major leaguer. You can see he spent each of the last 3 years with Cleveland as a pretty regular player for them. We're looking at him as a fourth outfielder. Doesn't have a ton of pop. Can bunt a little. Has a little bit of speed. Pretty good defensively. Good personality in the clubhouse. Clearly a player that we would move on from if we are able to make a trade down the line to bring on someone who's more talented and more popular. But right now, definitely not a bad fourth outfielder for us to have on the roster. And with the pitching staff, we've got a lot of cuts to make. Juan Bin Daoud, Sal Valadez, and Bobby Astorga are all guys who potentially could be contributing to our rotation in the not-so-distant future. But right now, we're going to send all of them down to AAA for a little bit more seasoning. So that is three obvious cuts. When we move to a five-man rotation now, my assumption is that Omar Gaona may be back in there. No, it's Danny Robles, who we picked up in a off-season trade. Another lefty. Pretty similar player, quite honestly, to what we have in Omar Gaona. I might feel a little better with Gaona in that spot. We'll have to figure that out. But we still got 4 more cuts to make just to see what the actual roster is going to look like. And then we'll make the decisions on who our number 5 starter is going to be. The first 4 are pretty straightforward, in my opinion. And we do kind of have 13 pitchers needing to fit into 12 spots, so we're looking to see what we can get for Nick Jarmone. It was a Rule 5 guy we picked up from the Diamondbacks a couple of years ago, and he's been respectable for us. 3.91 and 3.62 ERAs each of the last 2 seasons. Good personality, but he's kind of the odd man out at this point. Would have thought there might be, and he's very popular, so trading him away isn't going to help us on that front, but it is what it is. I think we're going to try to send him back to the Diamondbacks, actually. They've offered Manny Juarez, who is kind of a fourth or fifth outfielder, but he does still have 3 option years left, so not real interesting people being offered for him here at this late minute, but might as well take what we can get from him. Did think about Ernesto Arellano, but like the personality, like the fact that he's durable and he could start or relieve, just don't think he's got the movement and control to be a consistently good or a consistently consistent major league pitcher. So that's why we're going to focus on Juarez. And we did take another fan interest hit when we traded away Jarmon, but we had to get down to a 26-man roster, so another 1 point in the wrong direction there, and that really slows our season ticket sales down. Really going to miss the middle reliever, apparently. And we did decide to change things up, and we are going to force Gaona into our number 5 role by making Robles a reliever. So Longoria, Santana, Gonzalez, Montoya, and Gaona, same 5 guys that were our top 5 starters at the end of last season. Those guys are all back. Greg Gaylord moves in to become our closer. Mario Tolka and Ricky Rios both back as setup men. New addition, the lefty Mike Wright in middle relief. Elijah Helton, brought him back because he's popular, and he'll be a middle reliever, long reliever for us. And then the new additions, the right-hander Ethan Mingo and the left-hander Danny Robles, round out our pitching staff as the Pirates prepare for this 2044 season. And with those moves and the fact that we didn't really do much of anything in free agency this year and not all that much in trades, we do have money to bring on some contracts over the course of the season, and normally we're hamstrung on our budget and we need to give up more and more prospects to get teams to retain salary. This year we can actually, by the time we get to June or July and the season's maybe already halfway over, we can take on a real big-time player without having the team that's sending him to us need to retain a good chunk of his salary. So maybe that gives us a little more flexibility. We'll see how the season goes. Obviously would have loved to have added one more big bat in the off season. Obviously would have loved to have added players who are a lot more popular than the players we have on the team right now. But it's March 21st. It is what it is. I think we still have one of the best pitching staffs in baseball. And I think that with a full season of Henry Gonzalez and another full year of Isaiah Hill, Velasquez and Flores on board, and even Ramon Herrera, we should be able to generate some offense. I don't know if we're going to be third in the league in runs scored again, but certainly expect that this team will be in the top handful of the league in terms of runs allowed, and hopefully in the top half of the league in runs scored. And when we add that all together, hopefully that means that we'll be back in the playoffs come October. And we'll find out in our next episode when we kick off the 2044 season how those first tentative steps towards another potential postseason berth go. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.